The intention of any government is to expand. There is no limit to this expansion. Like a virus, like a cancer, it consumes its host, eradicating it. We, the people, are the host, and this cancerous tumor viciously steals from us every single day in order to fund its schemes of power and control. Debts have expanded to a record amount globally. In order to cover up this mess, central banks have printed money, effectively putting a bandage on a shotgun wound. Have no fear, ladies and gentlemen. The bankers are here to rescue us. Keep your money in the banking system. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to talk about how global government debt has become triple what we thought. And of course, we, being the mainstream media, they're finally admitting it now. And the numbers, before I get into them here, there's various numbers, depends on what you include. But even going by mainstream media, we have to feel at least they're getting to the fact that, yes, there's actually more debt than is admitted. But let's begin with this. It's always a reason to celebrate. The stock market is just doing so well, and another surge in U.S. stocks on Thursday on the heels of a 4-week rally turned the Dow Jones positive for the year and wiped out its losses from a terrible start in 2016. This is incredible. It's a very good reason. Now's the time to buy stocks, of course. Put your entire life savings in right now. The price of gold and silver and oil jumped, boosting materials and energy companies. The dollar continued to weaken, boosting industrial companies on hopes they will be able to sell more products overseas. It goes on to talk about, the generic information here. What I found interesting here is that gold, silver, oil, all commodities jumped at the same time the stock market jumped. So it's a little different than what we've seen previous in history, but it's a short-term analysis, of course. So we need to see the longer-term trend to really see where it's all going. But what's also to note here is that the dollar, which in the recent past has done well, has been weakening. And there's sort of that balance in between the U.S. stock market and the U.S. dollar. Which one will be in a bull market today? Let's look at this here. This is an article, it's a couple days old, but what's important about this article is that they're talking about the 200-day moving average. In fact, most of this article out of MarketWatch discusses the 200-day moving average, how important it is, all the reasons to watch it, all the facts about it, everything about the 200-day moving average. So when individuals are in this business are looking at these charts, they feel it is extremely crucial, and they will bring up this information as if it is gold itself, how important a 200-day moving average is. But what is a 200-day moving average? To me, it's nothing but another indicator that is part of the technical analysis about one of about 1,000, and I believe it is far down the list as far as I'm concerned. But they put so much stress on these technical analysis, and then they base their judgments on that. That's what really gets me, because it's not about the true fundamentals, and I understand that many of the fundamentals have been thrown out the door, but to a certain degree, we have to still use those. Things like technical analysis, in a stock market that's run off of computers, it's really hard to believe any of this anymore. 200-day moving averages, important to MarketWatch, not important to the Money GPS. This is out of the Wall Street Journal. Government debt in 20 industrialized countries stands at $44 trillion. That's the official government numbers. But it's actually a lot more than that. According to a new report, after factoring in public pensions and other retirement liabilities, the debt levels nearly triple to a staggering $122 trillion. And that isn't including all unfunded liabilities. That's just pensions and retirement liabilities. In here, actually, recently one of the commenters was asking about Poland. In this article here, you might want to check it out. They talk about the fact that Poland's at 350% debt to GDP, I believe the number was. So just an interesting thing that I saw that I thought you'd be interested in. I hope you're watching. This is a report out of Citigroup, and they're talking about the coming pension crisis. And a lot of this actually is something that Robert Kiyosaki talked about. He wrote a book about it, which if you're interested, you can read that, which analyzed government pension liabilities from 20 countries and the members of the OECD. It is really a ticking time bomb. Yes, of course, you're allowed to say that, but you're not allowed to get into the real nitty gritty and why this is all happening. So I'll move further down into the article. They say a few things. Oh, there it is. There's Poland's pension liabilities are more than 350% of GDP. They're the highest. And what we have here is a situation where countries cannot pay back on the debts that they owe. So what does a country do? Well, it turns to financial instruments. So they take their debt, they package it up, they put a bow around it, they sell it off. But what happens when there's no buyers? Well, the central banks buy it off. And of course, you eventually have a very big problem. What happens when banks go bust because they took too much risk on all of these packages and CDOs and CDSs and everything else? Well, of course, the central banks have to be there to backstop everything. Unfunded pension or retirement liabilities aren't budget costs but must be paid off today. But the debts place strain on the government budgets as they balloon in size. That's what's important to note about this. People think, well, it's in the future, it's not important. I disagree. One potential solution would be to borrow a strategy employed by the Netherlands, where they use a collective defined contribution system. It resembles a 401k account, though instead of individuals choosing the investing strategy, the funds are pooled together and managed by money managers. That's right. You want the criminals who are totally in charge of the system to be able to handle your money, and they're going to do excellent with it because it's pooled together, right? It's diversified. Where have we heard that before? This is unbelievable. The pensions, which are unfunded to begin with, which are a disaster, which are eventually going to have to be either changed in some way, people will get less, or they're just remove them altogether. I don't know what's going to happen exactly, but now to have them considered to be diversified because they're part of pools, financial instruments, and so-called assets, this is a disaster waiting to happen. And, the last article I want to get to, it's something I don't like talking about, quite frankly, but I'm just going to mention it briefly. Let's move on. And this is right here. It's talking about what we have with the CIA black ops type programs, black sites. And, unfortunately, I can't add it to the sources here in my video because it'll end up getting taken off. But anyway, what they're talking about here is all these black sites and all the disgusting things that they've done, the CIA. And really, I'd just prefer if you read it, but let me try and cover it a little bit. The Obama administration has refused to disclose 14,000 photographs, and as a result, we cannot show them. We can show, however, a swimming pool in Mallorca where a flight crew relaxed for a couple of days between dropping off one piece of human cargo and picking up another. Another man was tied up for 23 days. And, it just goes on. It shows you all this different levels of criminality. One individual was put inside of a box for several days. One individual was waterboarded and he drew the waterboard, and all of these different things. And in fact, many of these people were then basically sent off after a period of time with no explanation. And one guy just had the same name as somebody else, and he was treated and tortured like a real criminal. And all of this comes out, and what do we get? At best, we get redacted documents, which show so little because most of the information is redacted. And this is the kind of criminality that we face. And these type of people are partnered up with the bankers. They're partnered up with the technocratic elite. They're partnered up with all of these major corporations, big institutions that meet at meetings like Bilderberg and Davos with the World Economic Forum and all of the IMF meetings that take place and everything else. They're all interconnected in some way, loosely or tightly. And then we have to sit down here and try to make sense of this whole economic system when it's all a fraud. They have full control over the system. Look at what they're able to accomplish, and nobody says a thing. Nobody goes to jail. Nothing bad ever happens to these cancerous criminals. One of the points I wanted to make here about the unfunded liabilities, something I talked about in my book with this excellent book by Richard Duncan, The Dollar Crisis. If you like Mike Maloney stuff, then The Dollar Crisis is like Mike Maloney 2.0. He stated Social Security is an unfunded pension scheme. He goes on to say that if a private company did this, it would be illegal, but because it's the government, it isn't a crime. That's exactly how this system works. Those who are part of this government structure don't have to play by the rules. That's just the way it is. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. And last but not least, if you found the video informative, you will definitely find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. If you head over to Amazon, they have a look inside feature, which will allow you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Take care.